Okay, I have finished doing the knit 2 on this side, purl 2 on that side, knit 2, purl 2, or vice versa, hand formed ribbing, and I'm ready to get going. And we'll need to do a little mental clarity before we start knitting again, or this is where you can really knit yourself right off the machine. But we want to look first to see how many rows we need to, where are we in the pattern, and what do we need to do next. I've knitted 3/4 of an inch of stocking stitch, and that's that nice little curl that's going to be around the collar. Okay, then I've knitted 1 inch and made the ribbing, formed the ribbing, and now I'm to this section before I will put in another ravel cord, knit another 2.5 inches and form that into ribbing again. So the total length of that was 16.5, maybe 17. Remember, I compared the dog and the sweater. We don't really care. Okay, length is gonna be close. So this 12.25 is that 16.5 total length minus that section, and that section, because I need to know how many stitches to knit right here in stocking stitch. So that's 12.25 inches at 12 rows per inch. That's about 144. 12 times 12. We're going to call it 150 and rock on. I don't know if I have my pencil. Yeah, we do. So 150. Okay. We can do a little better than that. Okay. And also, I'm going to increase the tension to 7. I thought about this last night. I like a good, tight, waterproof cloth. However, it could be a little bit looser than this. And so let's, as of this point, move tension to 7 right there. Okay? Alrighty. So now let's not lose the Apple Pencil. Hang on, let me stick it to the side. Okay? And let's think, because we need to do a few things. We need to kind of get the needles aligned. So they're kind of aligned. Now, what do we need to make sure has happened? We need to make sure that all of the latches are open. And there are a couple of, you can go through and open each latch, but I wanted to show you a couple of things. You can, this pass-up, use these, it's a little pass-up mustache, and you go along and sneak the latches open, okay? So that's cool. You also can take an old debit card or gift card or anything and cut it in whatever shape suits your fancy. I've cut in various shapes, that one. And then I also see, I think I like this one better. I think that's the cutout from that. So there is the one that I like, okay? And you can go along and get your latches this way. If you have a latch that is closed and you don't notice it, you will drop that stitch. You now know that you could pick it up, because you would pick it up the same way that you made the ribbing, although you'd pick it up on the other side, which is, you know, kind of fun. You get to do a little contortion yoga. Let's bring those out a bit, okay? And I always do feel, you can feel a closed latch. Practice. Close a latch and then see what that feels like next to a needle that the latch is not closed. You can normally feel it better on the sides of your fingers than you can right on the pad, because you might have some callousing on your pad. Who knows? Okay. Now, we also want to remember, have I set that to 7? Yes. We want to remember how we knit, okay? And this might not be as much of an issue for people that are, this is the one machine that you're learning on, but for the people that are used to having a yarn feed, you're kind of used to, let's just start knitting, okay? Well, you can't do that because you don't have any yarn, all right? So we also want to go under the tooth of the sinker. Remember that first tooth? We want to go all the way over here. And you can kind of see one last little neurotic check. We can kind of see, and do you know what? Neurosis paid off. That latch was closed. Okay, so let's check. At this point, you know, honestly, let's do this. Let's knit smart and all learn something together. At this point, let me tighten this. I keep closing latches on myself. Okay. You could actually back up a little bit and close the latches. Can you see what I'm doing? Let's zoom in. I've got super camera now. Let me lean down. Let's see what I'm doing, because I just don't want to take the chance. So do you see where those, daggone it. Okay, so some latches are closed, some latches are open. What I'm doing is I'm pulling the needles back a bit and closing it. And this would be a really nice, safe, smart way to start a row, because the chances of dropping a stitch at this stage of transition are higher than when you're just knitting. Okay, when you're just knitting, everything's kind of stable. And so we're going to do this. And that way we also know that yarn and latches are in the correct relationship to each other. In other words, the yarn is inside and the latch is going to pull let the old loop, what's called knock over. Okay, so that's the technical term. So when a loop comes off of the needle, that's called knocked over, and then the new loop is formed. All right, and we are now taking a breath. We're ready to knit. So here we come. And I know that we don't need weights, but again, this is a moment of transition, and I'm holding my yarn with my fingers. This wants to catch. Okay, so these I've got to make. So by saying these I've got to make, what I mean is that these last three, you can't see because my arm's in the way. These last three, I need to physically make. I'm making the stitch. So I go, let's look. Okay. So I have yarn here, and it needs to be all the way over. So what you do is pull it through the loop, then come forward, go all the way past, because again, that latch needs to be, the loop needs to be behind the latch. Pull it through, go forward, there. Now, let's see if, at this point, let's back up. Let's see if we are straight with the universe. I think we are. I'm holding a little bit of tension here, okay? In other words, I'm not just letting the yarn, it's like I'm letting it run through my fingers, just friction tension. Okay, we are now knitting, and we're going to knit one more time, and then we're going to think about what have we forgotten, aside from getting the yarn up underneath. Because we've forgotten something. It's not crucial, but we'll be sorry soon. Okay, we have forgotten to count rows. So, well, I've done 3. I'm getting ready to start the 4th. I do mine before I make the row. Do it whenever, but once you've made your decision, my advice is to do it that way in all circumstances for the rest of all time, because that way you know what you're doing, okay, and you know where you are. So I've knitted row 3. I'm going to start row 4, and so I hit my little counter. I've knitted row 4. I'm going to start row 5. I've knitted row 5. I'm going to start row 6. Now, the problem with doing it this way is that if I walk away, get a cup of tea, breathe, upload this video, whatever, I need to know that I have done it. So whatever, I mean, I don't have any method. I can lie on its side and remember, oh yeah, I've done it. That's the issue with doing it at the beginning of the row. If you did your clicker at the end of the row, then you would know where you were. So, you know, I don't like my own method, but it's how I do it. Okay, there we go. I'm going to knit the 145, 150 rows. See you later.